Well, let me just show you some data. I can't get away from numbers, it's my science background. So actually, Alice Burroughs, I didn't do any of this work. She did all of this. She took a while and went through and looked at a bunch of different classes that we teach all over the college at multiple campuses. And she just assembled a bunch of data. So if you look at here, here's classes we teach, the campus they're taught on, the name of the book, the ISBN number. Yeah, I'll take you. This is how much the books are new. These are how much they are at 2 rental sites, and these are how much they are buying from somewhere else. Now, just a couple highlights. The human biology book I use, if you were a student, you go to the bookstore, you can get it new for $144, used for $108, or you could rent it for $12.99 for a semester. And it's not just science. If you look at this, here's a Spanish textbook, $134 new, $13.99 rent. So if you look through here, it's not always the best choice to rent. Sometimes if you look at all these numbers, it's cheaper to buy them off campus. Sometimes it's cheaper to rent from Chegg, like it is here, and sometimes it's cheaper to rent from campus book rentals like it is here. So it's really kind of all over the board. So all that handout is just kind of a little blurb on how to look at these different sites. The first thing you have to look at any of the books is you have to have the correct ISBN number. And I actually learned something about that because I always had confusion because I would send my students their ISBN number for the book and they'd email me back, some of them saying that's not what they had. And I didn't know that the school does not use the 13 number ISBN number. Every book has a 10 and a 13 and we don't use the 13. I could have saved myself some headaches if I would have known that. So to find out what the school has as your ISBN number, there's multiple ways to do it. But if you look through this packet, starting here, it's just all the screens you go through to find it. So everyone knows how to get to this page. So if you go and log into the portal, and there's more than one way to do this, this is just one way. Then you click here.
What does it say?
And you have all this too. You go to your class schedule, and then you, yeah, and that handout has every one of those screens. Every single screen is shown. Then you search for the term, so if it's for next fall, it'll just be fall with 10. You find your class, and then the next screen will show you the textbook information. Then you'll get to this one. I'm just flashing through these because you have them all. And then lastly, you'll get to your class where it shows you your book, and there is your ISBN number right there.
And is that the one the students need to go online?
Yes, that's the one they need.
For our books.
Yeah. Well, for
online.
That's if a student wants to know what the ISBN number is going to be and they look it up, that's the number they're going to get. So I have to make sure I send them the number they're going to get online as well. It's the 10.
The 10. Will you send them the ISBN number of
Yeah, I send my students ISBN directly, but I didn't know that the school didn't use the 13 number, so I would send them the 13-digit number, then they would get the 10, and there would be confusion. So once you, even
Which
if...
is it that we need to tell them, the 10 or the 13? I didn't write it down.
The 10.
They need the 10.
Yeah. And so once you have that, then that's all you need. Like you can search all these sites, like using the author and the edition and name and all that. But if you have that 10-digit ISBN, it's the easiest thing by far. And then the rest of this is just what some of the sites look like. So if you go to Chegg.com, that's what Chegg.com's website looks like. So to look for your book, all you do is copy and paste your ISBN number in there and hit Find Books. One thing the students love about this website is every time you rent a book, they plant a tree.
Have there been any problems with students with that site?
So far, I've had about 25 students kind of polled in all 4 of my classes that rent their textbooks. And most students use this. It's the one that's kind of spreading by word of mouth. And so far, there's no problems. The books come in about a week. If you want to expedite them, you could pay a little more to get that. If you get a book, it could be used. So if it's in the condition you don't like, you send it back to them and they'll send you another one. But that brings some responsibility on the student, though. You can highlight in them lightly, but you can't like doodle and draw pictures and tear out pages and bring home or something like that. They expect them back in really lightly used condition. So if there's someone who likes to make notes and all that, then maybe that's not for them. Also, the slide after this in that handout that Ellen gave you has some of their specific stuff. So basically keep highlighting to a minimum. If you don't like your book, send it back, we'll bring you another one. And so far, the students love this. So, and there's this website, these people are on the ball. If you have a question, you can video chat with them, or text chat with them, I mean. And I had a student do that, because a student asked me a question in my micro class I didn't know the answer to about Chegg. And so another student in the back just typed it in as an IM, and 5 minutes later he raised his hand. He's like, here's what they said. And I was like, thank you very much. So the other one is campus book rentals. And this is just 2. There's more than this. You could go out there and look, and you'd find multiple sites that would do this. It's the same thing. You just enter in your ISBN number. And again, you can do keywords and author and all that, but if you want to get right to the crux of the matter, just use the ISBN number. And they're pretty much the same with their guarantees. One thing nice about them is you have a date the book is due back, but they'll give you 15 days beyond that as a grace period. And these guys are like Netflix. When you get your book, it also comes with an envelope that's pre-addressed back to them and all that. And so when you're done with the book, you put it back in, seal the envelope, drop it in the mailbox, and it goes back. And one thing they both have in common too is that you can rent for different periods of time. So if you want it for the summer, you don't have to pay as much. And these guys too, if you get into a class and decide you don't want to take it, you have 30 days to send it back for all your money back minus the money, the shipping.
It's humane.
Yeah, what's that?
It's humane.
Yeah, and it seems to work really well. I haven't specifically talked to a single student using this. I just didn't want to come across as like being like working for Chegg. But that's what people are using because that's what the students in class talk to each other. They're like, oh my God, you spent how much? And there'll be a student sitting right next to each other with the same exact book, and I spent 144, and you spent 12. I need to talk to you. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of spreading. My thing is, it's a lot of the students who have been here for a year totally get it. They're like on board with it. The word is out, and they're getting their books that way. It's the people coming from high school or coming back to school who don't have a clue you can rent a textbook. Those are the people I'm trying to reach. And so what I'm trying to do in my classes is just before the semester even starts, months before, just email them the information. You can buy your book or you can rent it. Here's how much it is at all 3 places.
What kind of advisors with that? It's not often the first point that people come to when they're looking into it.
That's a really good idea. I didn't even think about
And
that.
then they can at least say, you should look at this as an option now. And that might get at least them processing it. Because I know some people feel, or students who are coming back, they feel better about, I'm going to the bookstore, I'm getting exactly what I need, and that gives them a confidence level going into it, especially if they're a re-entry student. But that's where I was trying to if the advisors knew to tell students they could kind of process that and then have enough time to look into it before they're like, all of a sudden class starts next week, I've got to get something out.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to do that. You're going to think about doing that. I don't know why. I'll do that when I get back up there.
Okay.
This word has got to get out. This is just kind of maybe, this is the first slide I skipped over. This is an actual email I got from a student. And I thought it was kind of, it was interesting to me, and I highlighted this part. I remember back when I was 18, if I could save $600 in one day, that'd be like pay my rent for a while. You know, so the money they can save is substantial. So she was also I did put the whole email. She was really impressed by the fact that they planted like 5 trees because she got 5 books.
Where do they plant?
I don't know. Oh, really?
Where did they plant?
I mean, it's easy to say plant, we can't just plant trees anywhere, you know.
Should have a little plaque with your name on it.
Well, it seems like it's easy to say, they like show up like in a forest or like a public.
Could you get back to us on that?
Yeah, I'll find out when the tree is out. They should have
They
ice
were
cream
just on
every
a
state.
tree plant, you know, a paper tree plantation.
Northern
We're
Wisconsin.
still making oxygen.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the ironic thing about recycling paper is that producing paper is probably one of the most clean industries there is.
Well, I do what I was on the recycling because I went to school at the University of Oregon, so it's pretty liberal, and it's where a lot of the tree hugger people are. So, and I also grew up in the side of Oregon where there's a lot of logging, and so where I went to school was sort of the anti-loggers or the devil, and then you know versus where I see people as a livelihood. And I remember you were evil if you chose like paper or plastic at the grocery store, and you said paper. There's like you were like trying to destroy the environment single-handedly, and Now it's flipped around because you think of all the toxins, the horrible things about plastic, and that paper is actually the good thing, and it's biodegradable. So that, even that has come full circle around. Anyways, it's
Grew up in Idaho, same thing. Read the bumper sticker, save a job, use squat valve, things like that.
exactly.
So I just kind of flew through this, but the two main mineral sites of Chegg, there's some specific information. It's all in the handout. Here's another site. And the prices, if you look really closely at the data I showed you, they're different. Sometimes Chegg is significantly cheaper. Sometimes Campus Book Rentals is significantly cheaper. And then sometimes buying the textbooks is cheaper than renting them. It just depends on the book. And so I didn't go into detail all on here, because I assume most people have been to Amazon. But the three that seem to be the most used around here, anyway, are BookBite. Here's their details. Barnes & Noble, which everyone's heard of, and then also Amazon. So what I started doing is take all 5 of those sites and take like 10 minutes and type my ISBN number and see where it's the cheapest, and then that's what I'll tell the students. And they can do with as they will. I know there was some opposition to this from what I've heard. I guess it was before I got here, based on the fact that it wasn't available to some students. And so if you look at here, if you have a debit card, you can use this. And now you can go to Safeway with cash or a check and get a prepaid debit card and then go buy the book. And so this is really available to every single student who has money in some shape or form. And I think going on one trip to Safeway is worth saving $600.
Yeah.
So I like that because it's not, everyone has, it's available to everybody, and it's going to get them the best possible price for the resources we think they need to have. So that's my spiel. So I know I kind of flew through that, but everything is in that handout. I was kind of hoping people would take those, and if you're bored with it, hand it off to someone else who has textbooks, and then you know. So, anyway, any questions?
So just real quick, there's a little quick way to get to the ISBN number. If you go to the front page of the website, YC website, and just go to the bookstore link.
You do that real quick? So where's the bookstore link?
It's on the left-hand side, right underneath Blackboard login.
Okay, so front page to bookstore.
And then you just select your campus and term.
So Verde Summer.
And then you search by course.
So then you just, your name would pop up and then you click on that. Oh, and then I guess if you scroll down, then there it is. That's way easier, thanks.
And there's the
Is that the
so
bookstore
just
ISBN or the real publisher's ISBN?
It's the same.
It's the 10 number one.
It's our bookstore.
Right.
Not always if they package it differently, right?
No, we always have to give the bookstore the package ISBN.
And so that can change. Like
If you've got a package
Yeah.
that's got some other supplemental materials, the publisher gives a different ISBN number, and that ISBN number is what should be on this site.
yeah.
Right, but if we want to give our students the general ISBN number, then we shouldn't use that.
Right, that's not what the bookstore has. If you just say, here's an old edition with no supplements or whatever, and here's the ISBN for it, but it's an old edition so the bookstore can't get it, then yeah, it would that'd be one we have to look through the administrative assistant.
So my micro textbook comes with a lab notebook, and if you get just the textbook, you get one ISBN number. If you get them both at the same time, it's a different ISBN number. And that's really important because I taught Bio 160, and I didn't, this last semester, I didn't use the lab book that comes with it. And for some reason, the bookstore got it turned around, and so the students came to class with buying both. And they only needed the textbook.
So I just want to make sure, when they go to rent these, it's the 10-digit number, right? Okay.
Yeah,
So
so-
when do they use the 13-digit number?
I don't know the answer to that.
I think it's, from what I've heard, and this may be wrong, but I've heard that it's used by other countries other than ours. European countries, international, when you're selling books, in Europe or whatever, using the 13. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what somebody told me.
What's really also odd, Eileen, and it might be a part of that, because at least with our anatomy books, we always use, we've been using the Martini, and it comes with these other supplement, and it can get this whole thing packaged, and it comes with a course compass. So if you buy a brand new book, it's sort of really what publishers are doing to promote buying a new book instead of using, since anatomy really we're not popping out new limbs with new words every year, so one could conceivably use one from 50 years ago would be fine, is they're trying to promote what they have for online and make that their reason for people to buy them. And one thing I noticed, I'm wondering if the ISBN number is the key here. I usually tell students, well, you can get it anywhere. We just need this access code for the parallel website. And if they buy the new book here, they get they'll get the access code for free. But if they buy the book elsewhere with also a Course Compass access code, it's been strange because it's still, you think it's an access code for this Course Compass and parallel website, whether you bought the book on campus or bought it from Amazon. And I've had several students struggle and not be able to log in because they've coded it for Yavapai College purchase book versus any purchase book. And it's been really odd because it's still, two students might show up with the same textbook, one bought it on campus and the other one bought it on Amazon with the Course Compass website and all the same digit codes, but then we always have to send theirs in for a new one. And I've asked them, why does it just let you in the website? Why do you have to subcategorize it as Yavapai's website or not? And I think that's where the 10-digit ID comes in, or if it's there's sort of an odd thing there, and that was new. It was a new layer because a couple years ago, any of those access codes would work everywhere, and the last couple years have been problematic.
So that was, when you saw both numbers, that was on the rental side?
Yeah, so what I did here, just to kind of, that one you were looking at was campus. All I did was highlight that number. We were looking at the ISBN. Oops, I lost it. Oops. So what you were looking at is the book that you could actually see shows both the 10 and the 13. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's out there.
Yeah. So most of the time when you go to Amazon, it'll show both of them as well. It's just the school doesn't deal with the 13s. And I don't know enough about ISBN numbers even to understand remotely why, but that's just what I was told when I started asking why I was sending my students one number and then the school had a different one. So I didn't know that. But yeah, definitely here there's both ISBN numbers. I have no idea why each book has two. You want a librarian expert in here? I have no idea. But when it comes to the school's website, they won't use the longer one. So when you see this book here, it's 5102, and I just looked at it on Chegg, and Chegg it's 73. So again, one rental site's much better, and it's not one's always better. You just never really know. So those are just a couple more options. Good things. Did you look up your book that was 140 something?
Yeah, 148.
How much was it? Was it cheaper anywhere else?
I haven't checked it yet.
So that's just another option.
Yeah, I just Googled the 13-digit versus 10-digit, and it says the 13-digit is the international ISBN. Whereas the 10-digit
Which
is the US.
is, at least in our situation, there are sometimes paperback international editions that are available online in the U.S. for usually half or less, even in a new version of the book.
I had a student that would come, we always have these big fat hardbacks. The student had this really neat one that was a paperback. It was a little bit thinner, it was the same cover, but paperback, and it was the international edition.
International, yeah.
And lighter. It was
Lighter, cheaper.
They probably, just looking this up right now, it may be this. So the students in my class who use the international version, you get, instead of getting one thick textbook with a hardback, you get two paper ones that are thinner, and they're a lot cheaper. I think this one, I'm not sure if this is it or not. Anyway, but that's another option.
It also says the 10 digits are getting phased out.
Oh, really? Oh,
The 10 digits are getting phased out.
yeah, I know.
So just to expand a little bit, actually this is, so the textbook I just showed you here, it was new for $205, and it's the one I looked at on Chegg.
This one?
Yeah, so that was $205 new, that's the American version. This is the international version. It's new for $73 instead of $205, and it's paperback, and it comes in 2 smaller volumes. So the international versions are also way cheaper if you want a new one. And I haven't even touched on ebooks. You know more about that than I do. I haven't looked into that too much.
Ebooks, let's hear that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Some of the textbooks you can just get in a PDF.
But they go away. So people will buy them, and I forget what the price difference is. It's lower. It's like 50% lower. So if it's a $200 textbook, you're still paying $100, still paying a significant amount. But the key is that they have, at least in past, I haven't looked at the recent one, have had it where it will no longer activate after a certain date. So it sort of poofs and goes away after a 1 year or something, or you're allowed to, sometimes they'll have it where you can download it to, for instance, or a student may have a desktop computer and a laptop. So they sort of give you some sort of code where you're only allowed 2 downloads, so you're not sort of buying one and then giving it to all of your friends. So they have a few catches in there where when I looked at it, probably about 2 years ago about the ebooks, it didn't seem to pencil out as well, because students like to access the online books, but most students like to grab something and hold it and feel it. And so the cost savings wasn't as good as one would to give up an actual handheld one. And if it was quite a bit cheaper, but when you think of buying a new one and then being at least able to sell it back and recoup at least some of the money, the cost didn't come out. But they've done a little bit better. And when I was looking at some of the online resources, the McGraw-Hill seems to be better, at least the ones I had looked at, in terms of their ebooks. A lot of the ebooks are, here's a textbook and you can just scroll through it page by page, and at least the book that we use currently here on campus, I do not like their ebook at all. It's this textbook just online, but it's, if you type in their index and say, oh, I wanted to look at, where's the page on blood typing? Like if you didn't have your textbook open, or even if you knew it was on page 649, you couldn't go online to go to 649. It was very hard to find. Even if you typed in blood typing, I could never get like the page it needed to go to. Where McGraw-Hill seems to have a much more robust online textbook where, as I was scrolling through, you could actually click at the point of a tutorial for that. Because all of the books, and one of the advantages of having, say, the parallel website is you might have a chapter on the endocrine system, and you can read a book, and there's all the text providers offer quizzes and things, but they might have neat little animations of showing here's a little hormone going to the thyroid gland, and out pops other hormones, and here they're going to cells. So you can actually get a student to visualize some of those things, and some of them are better than others, but they're all pretty decent. McGraw-Hill seems to have done a better job at integrating them. So when you look at the ebook, it's not just like a PDF of the textbook. You actually can click on, oh, anatomy of the ear. You might hear a 1-minute little click on, oh, there's these 3 parts, and then you can move on. And so they seem to do better than that. And so when they talk about an interactive ebook, they're really not there yet. And so I'm currently on sabbatical, working on putting some of my lecture notes and my online video lectures and trying to consolidate them so that I can put them online and have students read through the notes and click on the associated videos at the real time that they need to at the point in the class that they are. And when I was looking at McGraw-Hill, they were doing that same thing, so that's why I kind of like that. So it's like, that's how, because the students think you don't have to get to the end of the lecture and then say, oh, here's all your lab activities. It'd be nice to be talking about a cell, and then now you look at the activity associated. So some of it's worth looking at the ebooks. They still haven't solved the problem because students still, and perhaps with Kindle and having them bigger, or those new iPads, I don't know, where it actually feels like a book or looks more like a book. There's been mixed reviews on that. Students tend to be like wanting their iPods and things, and you can do that. But the ebooks, some of them are very cumbersome, where they're just leafing through a page and you're trying to read them and they're very terrible, but some do very well. So it is certainly worth, when you whittle down the content of your books, that may be a make or break choice between some of them, because like I said, they do a good job in some places.
I've heard ebooks tend to lead to lots and lots of printing. So it may be cheaper to buy from the student with the school in the long run.
Well, even when you post PowerPoints, I have students say, well, let me see your PowerPoints. I might do a video and doing some animations, but they still want to see some of the still shots. And I said, okay, that's strange. I'll put them, because everything's here and I've got notes for you. But then I'll see students that show up printing the PowerPoints. They end up being like one whole PowerPoint on one page. And this one woman was bragging about how she would come in and trick the library because they'll let you do 10 pages. I have to come back every hour and I would do this, and she had this huge notebook. That's why I didn't post it in the first place. So it is hard. Like they do want to print things, and it's hard for people to get away. It's hard to have an exclusive online textbook. It's nice when they do have a new book, or if someone has a book, that publisher allows you access to it. So if a student is elsewhere and without lugging their book around, they know what they want to find. But that's when the search issue becomes an issue. And that's what I found out with my books. I would be not having my book with me, and I'm trying to look something up for a student, and I couldn't remember the page. I didn't want to click on the chapter, then scroll through 6 pages. I just wanted the term, and that was where I couldn't find some of those. So perhaps with the new Kindles, where they might get the compromise of an ebook and still feel like they're holding something.
So I don't know if this is McGraw-Hill's ebook for this Anatomy and Physiology course, and so the ebook itself now has video. This I think what you were talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Even if you went to the reading one, I did, well, yeah, if you just even scroll down, most of them will just put it in the 2 columns like you're looking at.
Yeah, usually most of them it just looks like a textbook pages online, but this is actually
Because it would
formatted.
be more, but it's nice if they do at least one center page, and then they would have it where there would be, say, a video link right within the point. It would launch it, and you can always, in a separate window, and you can always come back. You didn't lose your place. Where our current textbook, if you launch a video, it takes you out of there, and then you have to go back.
And here's, like right here, you can see how would the shape of this graph change in the case of moderate hearing loss. So it's now an interactive graph. It's not just you can't do this in a textbook. Although I don't know what just happened there. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So now they're showing you how it would change in the image as part of the textbook. And then you go back to reading it, and I assume this probably, this takes you here.
But then a whole nother company had another page where, for instance, for anatomy, you buy a separate anatomy coloring book. The Elsevier book has a whole page or a whole link. I didn't see it. I just saw them advertise it. I can't get onto their links because I'm not able to communicate with anybody from that company. But they had a whole section of downloadable or printable coloring book pages and things. So and students like that, especially anatomy students. So it's nice to be looking at this, but it's nice if maybe they just did print out this little coloring outline of a liver or something. They're coloring vessels in and out, and so they can still get some sort of tangible component without printing the whole book off. But it's amazing how different the resources are. But what has been consistent, at least with the online materials, is one reason why we stuck with this textbook for so long, and why I ended up choosing it years ago, because it was one of the first ones that had a whole comprehensive complement website that I've taken my students off of the campus Blackboard and gone to their Blackboard site, not so much because I like our Blackboard, but when I had students go on here, they would be able to access a lot of the videos that would complement their reading, and I could upload quizzes if I wanted to upload my material, which I could do here on our Blackboard, but the publisher provided a lot of really nice supplementary videos that I didn't have, and I didn't want to reinvent the wheel, make them myself, and they could do a better job. So there was a trade-off, because if a student bought a used textbook, they would have to pay $35 to get to the class website. But if they bought a brand new textbook, well, then it would be free. And so that's where the catch would be. And so I, as a teacher, we're always trying to evolve. Like, I want to develop my own stuff so I can just put it here on campus so we don't have to pay the $35. But I would often tell students, no, you're better off paying the $35 access fee so we can have the class website, you get all the resources, and buy a $10 anatomy book from years ago. That could be anybody's, any publisher. So I've tried to help them go around that. But whether it's this book or other textbooks, most of them now have a really nice shell that even go with Blackboard so people can interact with them. And some of the confusion is, for instance, one example is this textbook has www.myanp.com. They also have www.myanatomy-and-physiology-place. And then for years, it's like, which one is it? And what it turns out is, if there's a teacher that doesn't want to do online assignments, then the Anatomy Physiology Place has all of the resources, all the videos. The student that wanted to go and find more information could go. But if a teacher wanted to make it as an interactive class website, it's that same information put into a Blackboard shell, then a teacher can add their own stuff too. So I used to be confused of why are these different websites websites, and they're all the same information. It just allows a teacher to create a course based on what would be Blackboard. So that is nice, and all of the publishers have that capability now. So people that are comfortable with Blackboard, they can do that and still reap the benefits of some of the videos. But nowadays, people are YouTube. So I would recommend doing some of what Matt does also, is just linking it in there, because you don't want to leave YouTube up to your students to find on their own, because there's plenty of good things and plenty of bad things on there. So it would be well worth your time as a teacher to scan some of those and put some representative examples, and now they have such good embedding things that we can put them on our own Blackboard sites here. So there's a number of resources that you could go around, but and so it's well worth looking at the supplemental material, because whether you use them in class, your students are looking for them. So some books have them for students to access, and some of them have them for you to utilize in your course, or for you to create a course within. But the videos are pretty helpful, and the publishers now are working on projects where they're trying to make tutorials. This is the course compass that we currently use, but they're trying to make now tutorials, as opposed to just an animation to show, say, how the heart works and where blood's going. They're now trying to say, I spoke with someone at Pearson, and they were talking to me about doing one, saying, well, for instance, here's an image. We need you to explain it. And they're trying to make tutorial links for specific images that to allow a 3 to 5 minute video to make them come alive. And they wanted teachers to whiteboard on them and pretend that you have a student coming into your office, I don't get this picture. And now you explain it, and you can draw these little cells, they open up here, and this little thing moves there. And so they're trying to make online stuff less glitzy and glam and more real and tangible. So if a person's online, and if some online teachers just upload PowerPoints and say, go for it, here's some assignments and read this. Well, they don't get this interactive feeling, so some of the publishers are now trying to accommodate that, so a student can click on a figure that's common to be, or that students are known to struggle with, that they can now click on and feel like they're, even though they're not interactive, they're still getting a teacher talking to them as if, as if you were to go in someone's office hours. So I know they're trying to make accommodations, and that's why it is worth looking at the supplemental material. There's some consistencies with the shells, and some of the minute peripheries are different, and that some people like and some people don't like so much, or find important or less important, I guess. But I did, as far as looking at the McGraw-Hill did seem to offer more, and what Larry's found out is McGraw-Hill often offers more for free. So he's linked a lot of things, whatever textbooks he's using, to the McGraw-Hill resources. So they definitely are much more free and open with their materials. The other thing that they had, if everyone's seen that old Anatomy, the Atom software, it used to be, years ago, it was this really big deal where they had a drawing person, so the Atom pictures, if anyone ever goes to, say, Medline or PubMed, and they're, where's the liver, and it shows through this drawing. It's a pretty anatomically correct drawing, but it's always drawn by Atom, and they had a software years ago where there's like this volume slider bar on the side that you can move it down, and it would show the dissected view further and further down. And one thing that McGraw-Hill has done, so as far as the anatomy books go, I don't like their book as well, but I love their online material, is they have now a real virtual dissection where they actually have real cadaver images, and you could use the slider, and it's literally peeling away, but you don't see the peel. It's almost just making it translucent, and then it goes away, and you're actually seeing what it looks like deeper and deeper. And they've included microscope slides, they've included animation, so they've actually gone well above and beyond trying to integrate an in-class lab experience with an online visual experience, and have done a really good job at that. And so some of the textbook publishers, so I clearly don't have an answer for you in terms of where to go, because the resources are everywhere. So know that most of the time they have a consistent shell that teachers can build with, and they have a lot of really good resources that go with it. But then some of the peripheries of whether, like, you want this dissector, or you want some of these coloring book pictures, or you want some of these, that's where there's sort of hit or miss between them, and then you have to decide yourself what you find important. It goes back to what inspires you and what ultimately you want to see student put in front of them, and then provide them with the easiest way, because our package gets so expensive because the rep shows up and says, here's the cost for this book. But for $5 more, we'll put this here. And just $5 more, it's not anything, we can do this one too. And then, well, another couple dollars, well, they really have to pay, you know, $30 in the bookstore, but we'll give it to you for another $5 more. And then this is what they end up taking home. And it sounds cheap when you start adding little $5 things, and they're all great, but I have yet to assign anything out of this. And students like these bone pictures, but I mean, it's nice and it's an extra little $5 thing, which I now have learned to translate to $20 in the textbook. When they say it's $5, it's not. So a lot of the supplemental material that come with our packages now that we're sold to aren't really benefiting the students. Like, it seems like the online resources are more where they're starting to go to. So they have a textbook that they like or that you like and your material complement, and then they have material that's reliable, that you know is reliable, that they're getting information stuff from. Because sometimes them turned loose on YouTube isn't always that it takes them in the right direction.
Especially if they're searching for anatomical terms.
Yeah. Well, one day I was looking, we had one of our cadavers years ago, I had this envision of one side of the cadaver would be normal dissected and the other side would have a surgical intervention. So, for instance, we dissect the knee on one side, but the other side we'd have a knee replacement. And we were doing this, and so when we got to the chest, we had a doctor that was going to do a mastectomy, so we could see where the stitching would be for a mastectomy. And I thought, well, the other side, let's just do an implant. So I started looking online for a breast implant, like the person, because I have not done one, and I was thinking, well, maybe I'll just do it in the class, and I'll, I don't know, get an inflatable Ziploc bag and fill it with water or something, put it in there. And looking at that, I came across a lot of crazy things on the internet, and I thought, oh great, IT is probably going to come take my computer away, because I'm looking at these horrible things I'm not supposed to be looking at. It is, yeah, anatomy things, you jump into things that you didn't anticipate finding when you're searching for it.
Sometimes on YouTube too, like if you're searching for a particular topic, like say on the reproductive system, and you forget to uncheck the box that says show similar videos, once they're done watching the one you want them to watch.
Oh, no.
Just the whole Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation, you can go from A and P to porn in like 4 videos, unintentionally.
And your class is recorded.
Exactly, yeah, all their links, and yeah, I'm sure we would throw up a number of red flags at the IT department. They're wondering where people are hopping up their internet sites and things. So yeah, there is no easy answer. There's a lot of things to go through, but they are really going leaps and bounds in terms of what they're offering, because that's really the only thing these textbooks have to compete with each other. So they're just trying to build a better, glitzier. And some of them are just glitzy. Some of them I've gone through and they look pretty, but they're not useful and they're hard to get to and they're hard to maneuver. So it has been cumbersome, and like I said, I don't have an answer, but it is well worth going through. But before you do that, and most people do it backwards. They look at all the resources, then we'll decide. It's now there's so many resources, you can find exactly what you want. So you have to step back and think first what you want and almost think about what is the least amount of stuff I want to show to my students, because they get media bombarded, and that's I have so many students that spend so much time jumping from different media on one single subject that they actually are not very good time managers because of that. So it's an overload.
But all that time is just on this one.
Yes.
Should we, I think we could just maybe let you folks look at the materials that are here. I was gonna, we have open also at, I think 3 different publishers, and their online materials, the one where, this is McGraw-Hill, where they do seem to have made things a little bit simpler. I'm still always kind of, you know, I don't know, I love really simple, elegant websites, and whenever I look at any of these, this is about as simple as it gets, but there's still just so much to deal with here, I think. You know, I mean, just the look and where they're going to and registering. This is the Pearson publisher, where, like Ellen was saying, they have 2 totally different sort of platforms. This Course Compass is just a blackboard, a customized blackboard, and then this Mastering A&P, where you can also create certain materials and a grade book and all of that for your students. So, you know, you're even as an instructor, you're like, which of these do I use and how do I get it to my students? what we started doing last year is we created our own Google sites, which is, you know, Google just, I think, sometimes is so good at making things simple. This is a multiple contributor website, or what in the past would have been called a wiki, but nobody knows what a wiki is, but more than one person can get on here and contribute to this. And so, in fact, just for this little workshop, I did this last night in about 10 minutes. I made this little page, choosing a text in the digital age. Oh no, I did this with much preparation 2 weeks ago. What am I saying? And you know, I didn't, because I did it last minute, Ellen and Matt, I just sent them an email, but they can log on here, and or they just link from the email I sent them, and then anybody who wants to can get on here and edit this page. And it's just an online editor, you know, and you just add, you know, hi, this is you know, my dog's part here, or you know, whatever, and then save it, and now you have a website with a change in it. And we've used this for creating a site where we can share lab materials for the class, and here we have just an outline of this is the first semester of A&P, and every one of these weeks open up, and all of this, and we include our adjuncts in this. They can get on here and use this as they would like. You pull pieces out of this, or they can even create their own page where they're going just the things that you want your students to see. So this is using Google Sites.
Is that a wiki, did you say?
Yeah.
Basically
A wiki, I mean, what a wiki really is where there's easy access to the website for more than one person to contribute and update the website.
Like Wikipedia.
Like
Is the
Wikipedia.
big
Yeah, Wikipedia is the class
that's out
where everybody in the world can go.
Right, so if you look at
And-
what Wikipedia is, it's just people getting on and,
You can make these, you can actually, you know, you can choose who you would want to share this website with.
But do you have to, you could just give the URL to your students?
Yeah, then you can let your students just look at it and you don't let them change it.
So
Or,
what we have as a colleague, all the anatomy people are on here where we can change it, or say, well, I don't want to mess somebody else's page up, but you have the main pages. Let me just open this one for me, and I'm just going to bring over what I want, and then I'll create my course to link to there. And so it allows for one center repository for things like this that people can pull out of, which might work well for nursing in terms of different modules or clinical things.
So students can access this also?
right, but,
And you don't have to sign them up like you do on.
no, if I sign out,
Let me
if I sign out, then, let me see.
But if they have a Gmail account, I think they can get on it. A lot of people not sort of.
No, they don't need to just see what's there, anybody in the world can do it, so.
Okay. Oh, just to contribute if you're going to be a part of it.
So here's what the student would see without being, as just a website, and you would just give them this URL, and they would go here, and they can look at all the features of the website. People you invite to contribute, you don't need a Google account. They would just, from their email, get access to signing in and being able to edit the page. So the way we're doing that, like we have that for A&P, and now our other bio faculty also are doing it for labs for their courses, where the faculty can go on and upload documents, arrange things as they would like it, but then they just give the students access to the URL.
And it's really just to give, everybody a little bit more options that are out there, and allow, especially those that are adjuncts, who are coming in saying, what do we do for labs? What's a good way to do that? Well, here's a whole list of things that you could do. Or what are some articles out there on a particular topic, where you could have a series of links to 4 or 5 topics, or 4 or 5 articles on a particular topic, and people can contribute to that, and then it's a nice resource for the adjuncts who often don't have the time that full-time folks do to go in and research a bunch of things and find things.
You need to hit the ground running.
I think it's good for the students to be able to contribute to a wiki in terms of even in psychology, for instance, song lyrics or movie clips or their own ideas, their discussions, and the wiki would have a page to do that. Yes.
Yeah. So you can do it as a student project where you give students access to a site. I've done that frequently. And
Great.
Every student takes on a topic and they put their stuff on there. So yeah, it's great for that too.
And it sounds like the new version of Blackboard is going to have blogs and wikis built in. So,
Well, then it allows for people to do group projects where you're no longer in the classroom,
Well,
where
can I
one
just
person does
speak?
the project and the
No,
other
no,
people don't,
I
because
was-
it's online, you see who's contributing.
I just wanted to comment, that's true, it has some nice features, blogs and wikis. The unfortunate thing is, like it has before, the blackboards are shut down at the end of each semester.
Right.
So one of the nice things about blogs and wikis is they continue beyond the class, which isn't going to be the case with the Blackboard wikis. So it's
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah, if you're creating your own, it's almost nice to kind of have it where it's something that you can maintain as an evolving thing, you're not copying and pasting each semester to semester. So
And,
that's the advantage of sort of stepping out of the Blackboard aspect.
and in terms of long-term, stability, Google is probably going to be a pretty good choice. I used to use a different wiki platform called SeedWiki, and they actually shut down. And then actually, when they did that, it was just one guy, and he got so, and there was a special in the education community that he has resurrected it, so it's in better form. So it's kind of interesting, sometimes
So
you
the
need to.
wiki block stuff will get lost or erased
the ones
between semesters, or does it
in
roll over?
the ones that are built
Blackboard
into
shell.
Blackboard are still locked into a Blackboard system that shuts down and has no student access
It won't
after
get
the
erased,
semester.
though.
Right, you could
Roll-
have
like
access
discussion
to it.
boards can be rolled.
Right.
Okay.
Well, it seems, I was just trying to think of just a way to, like, we bombarded you guys with information. Ultimately, it's to help you know what's out there, so you know at least some of the things to start juggling with in terms of your trying to make these decisions for your classes or for your groups. It almost seems like a tangible thing, like within us, it just as a one-shot thing, like a student could rent a textbook. We could do like a wiki blog, and then if people like the online resources that some of the publishers have with those videos, because they are helpful and someone spent a lot of time making them, it might be worth having, if you can have a $12 textbook, worth a $35 fee just to go to an access site or something. Then you're not committing a student to buy a $200 textbook. You're still reaping the benefits of the resources that a publisher may offer. So you may have that as an online component that you would recommend to students. It's almost like another textbook, a supplemental textbook, but say, hey, here's $35 to get on this access. It's worth it. But here's the book for $12.99 you can rent, and then here's our lab components as far as a wiki, and that would be a pretty cost-effective way of giving a student a lot of information and be not lacking in any of the current information that they could be having access. It just would take a little bit of time to organize it any further and to think it through.
So I don't know if you want to take a look at our stuff. This is a textbook that didn't make it. In fact, this is a textbook that I used when I took my first human anatomy course, and it wasn't flashy enough to make it, but it's such a great textbook. It's just so
What's the
nice and
color?
simple. What?
Where's the color?
Yeah, I know.
How much
And
is
you know-
it compared to the colored one?
Well, it's not around anymore, but at that time,
Oh, what's-
I'm sure it would be much less expensive, and sometimes I just wonder, is more and flashier, and it's like, do you want the car with every single option in it? But there are products, like Ellen and I were looking at this one. This is just notes on anatomy and physiology, and you know what? It has just about everything. We want everything that's in it.
Well, and that's actually kind of
$25.
what I'm trying to create with my sabbatical is, okay, here's my notes. I still, when I write my notes, I go through all the textbooks. I try not to be like, this is what one book has done. And so go through all the books, come up with a notes page, but then I'm trying to make it where I could put it online and then embed those videos at the appropriate points. And as I develop more lab videos, insert them in, and people want them as a glossary and see them sequentially, they can. But so it's sort of, kind of an ever-evolving process, what's out there, and it's never a one-stop deal.
Well, we are almost at that point. When you see Ellen's producing stuff that is, I think, better done than most of what the publishers do. And we're at that point where we have that capacity, and
Well, with the Camtasia and everything.
and then we're not getting it all messed in with all of their junk. It's like, this is what we want.
And that's where sometimes you get,
book.
when you get bombarded with so much information, it's almost see what's out there, but then, and that's where in the past I said I'd go in and look at books like, oh, this one offers so much stuff, and that's how we started off with this book, because they offered all of this online stuff, so it really got us up and going. But now there's so much stuff, which platform to use, what videos, that it's almost now you want to step back and say, this is how I teach my class. here's the trouble areas that these videos would be great at. I don't need all these other things to sidetrack students. So there's so much to offer, you won't be disappointed. You have to then be more, have a more clear image of what you want it to be, as opposed to having them sell it to you. And that's where the wiki things and the renting books really come into play, and especially if you can map out your semester. And I've done that. I sort of go week through week and say, okay, endocrine system, what do I need for this? Okay, and I kind of go chapter by chapter and see where the resources are, which ones I like, which ones I need to make, and which ones I don't need to bother with. Yes.
Yeah, I think bottom line is all of us are at that point where practically what we're concerned about is selecting out what we want the students to get to. I think that's what you're doing too.
And that's why we're all sort of anti-textbook, because in the case of all the things we're using, none of us say, read the book from X page to X page. The book ends up being a resource that some students like, so listen to what we're saying, and then you want to look and read their version of it, and that's helpful, but it's not $200 helpful. And so that's where it's a compromise of, unless you're really utilizing it, the cost is really out there. And so we all agree we hate to say no textbook, because then some students really use it as a guide, but more students than not say, well, use it as a reference, let's use your notes and everything else. So that's where the cost, and that's why we're all here today, because I think we've all faced something on that.
Do warn them though, that's not a good idea when they get into the nursing program.
That will not best serve them because of the way we're structured.
Yeah, that the books are, and I think that because
Yeah,
the
they'll
nursing
switch.
program is a program onto itself, I think they view it,
Yeah.
different.
Works for these classes, but not necessarily for all.
If you look in terms of a reference source, this is an old classic and one of my favorites. And just from the start, the anatomy coloring book, the concept was brilliant. And there's a whole bunch of imitators. And if you're interested in this, get this one by Capit, who's just an amazing anatomist. It takes every single page. What it does, you can see it right there. You have a list of terms with little open block letters, and if you use it the way they say, you color those in and then color them on there. But every page comes with a nice, simple description, and there's no errors. The anatomy and everything is done right, which is not true of a lot of the imitators, which the publishers kind of just pump out.
Is that paid by number? Are those numbers?
Yes, I came by number.
I wish I'd had one of those for that right
Oh,
writing.
it is a great, and it's not for everybody, but for some of my students, tell them this is the only thing that got them through the course.
Yeah.
And it's $20, and it's very comprehensive. It is.
There's so much in there. It's like the Cliff's Note edition of these, that it's what they need. And
Who's the publisher?
I think it's Pearson, actually. Benjamin Cummings, which is Pearson. So, and I've been a newer edition. This is not.
There's one by Kaplan that I like the images for, because they're clean. I always think the images here are busy because they're very, a lot of fine line illustrations of muscles. So I like some of the Kaplan pictures better, but this has everything. It's got more slide images that you can color and more narration that people can link to. So it actually is a better package for people that already have a nice book that they like, and they like just some pictures to color. It's more of just a coloring book alone. This one's a lot more of a coloring textbook because it provides so much information. So it is really, that's the whole package, but the Kaplan also.
And it also fits, I think, in the end, anatomy, especially the anatomy side of it, is so much about just learning language, and it takes the students back to that preschool stage when we're good at learning language, which is no longer the case. So it's great for that. And there's a physiology one too by the same author. The other thing I was going to say is, going back to where we started and thinking about inspiration, the textbooks don't inspire us, but these are books that I am inspired by. That throughout, these are like the stories or the real inspiration that I try to bring throughout the semester, throughout the year to my students, and I do readings to them from these books, and I'm always amazed. I don't know if anybody's done this, but there's something so primal about being read to from a book, and I think I'm pretty boring most of the time, to be
So
honest.
those fiction?
What?
Fiction books?
No, I mean they're things like they're all related to medicine one way or another. This is the first Navajo woman who became a surgeon. This is Atulta Wande, who's been on the president's consult group. Just an amazing writer, Indian descent. This is the biography of this little girl who, from the
I
mom.
just read that. That is really
This is a book that I don't think anybody should go into healthcare without reading. So nurses, if you haven't read this,
carrying that around.
it's amazing. My brother's a doctor, keeps a stack of these and hands them out to all his colleagues, because it just shows how different the way people understand their own well-being and health.
Some nursing programs require this for cultural
Yeah,
consideration.
exactly. and it just does a better, but it's such a compelling story.
What's the name?
Not,
What's the
it's
name?
called The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down.
Ask Mark to borrow his.
This is about experiences in the anatomy lab, actually written by a student at Brown University, medical student. So this is more from the ecology and evolution end of things, but an amazing book about the human relationship, human ecology and our relationship with domesticated plants, called the botany desire.
No.
This is the
oh,
botany
Michael.
desire. I'll leave these out here.
Yeah.
Do we think we need to cover anything else? If not, we can just open it up if you guys want to look at materials. You can also play with, we've got
Would you
those
put the
sites
video
open.
on from McGraw Hill for sensory system?
I don't know.
We had it up there.
I think I went back to,
I think if you go back on this page, you might be able to click the textbook.
it was on the text, right?
Yeah.
In the ebook, okay. Yeah, I think it's the page that default that was open. Let's hope that's still.
Okay, so we're here on the sense.
Oh, this is the one you wanted to see, right? Is
I
this what
think
you
if
wanted
you
to see?
keep going down, there might be a video. Oh, so for instance, like there's an anatomy of the ear. It's like a 1-minute video saying there, and if you click on that, but you can also scroll down because it'll actually show you an image where you can see outer ear, middle ear, inner ear. But there's this 1-minute video that pops up and just sort of articulates that. But then you look at then later if they see the picture, like, oh, that's what the picture just says, and it makes the picture make sense as opposed to them understand the picture. And it's nice because they're a 1-minute little thing. There's like,
Did you want to see one in particular?
Yeah, look at this.
Any of them?
Sometimes I have trouble here in the library, so should we undo the pop-up one?
I don't know if we have sound one.
Strike the tympanic membrane and cause it to vibrate. Vibration of the tympanic membrane causes the 3 bones of the middle ear to vibrate. The footplate of the stapes vibrates in the oval window. Vibration of the footplate causes the perilymph in the scala vestibuli to vibrate, which in turn causes displacement of the basilar membrane. Short wavelengths from high-pitched sounds cause displacement of the basilar membrane near the oval window. This movement is detected by hair cells of the spiral organ, which are not visible in the animation.
This one's actually not that good of an
Long
animation. Normally they
wavelengths
should
from
show you the
low-pitched
hair cells when
sounds
they
cause
see it
displacement
and
of the
highlight
basilar
the footplate.
membrane far from the oval window. Again, this
It's
movement
ADA
is detected by
compliant with
hair
the text
cells
at the
of spiral
bottom. That's what
organs,
we're
which are not
starting to
visible
have
in the
to.
animation.
Well, that's what I did with my,
When
so
the
that,
vibrations
what I was planning on
sound,
doing, then I went to do the text, and that took me
they
so
travel
long,
to
so
the
I'm
round
having
window
closed
where they are
captions,
dampened.
all my videos up. Actually, that hair thing, that just a side note, not that you haven't got enough anatomy stories today, but I always, one of the things I talk about, like the hair cells, it's almost like a piano, you have the high pitch versus the low pitch, and the hair cells move depending on whichever pitch. And there is something known as selective hearing. He's a friend of mine up in Idaho. If you're a farmer or a rancher, it really means you're a mechanic by the winter. You have to clean, repair all of your equipment over the winter. And a friend of mine's father would spend all winter laying on a cement shop floor with wrenches banging, and so he could hear a lot of the high-pitched noises. And so when his wife would talk, he couldn't hear what she would say, but if his son or anybody else would talk to him, and you'd think you're talking to him at the same, loudness, but then he had hard, would always would ignore her. She'd get so upset thinking he's just ignoring her, and it's just, they've been married for 30 years, but he really couldn't hear because the hair cells at that point had been damaged because of the same pitch of the wrenches falling sort of by his head all. That's just reminded me of that story.
That's not too bad.
No, it still shows, but some of the newer ones now, when they say hair cells, they'll zoom in and, ooh, you see these little hair cells, and they might zoom out and go back to this. And when they were talking about the foot plate, they should have zoomed in and showed you what part, because it still wasn't clear. They never identified it. So that one, they're much better now identifying these. But it's still a nice thing, because you click on it, it's less than a minute long. You go through your text, because if you were to read, the foot plate moves and it causes sound waves. That, as a paragraph, you don't visualize those sound waves moving through there. So that's where the ebooks are helpful, if they have that. But some ebooks, that's why I hesitate to recommend it, because some of them are just the book sort of up as a PDF and you're just scrolling through, but you don't, and they might let you expand a picture, but it doesn't have these little short snippet videos to kind of watch and then as you move along, and that seems to be really neat. One thing that McGraw-Hill has set up nicely.
Well, they have a My Notebook too.
Well, they have all these little tools as you read along that go with you, right? So I hadn't seen this before. You can highlight, you can leave a little sticky note, and a note, and saying, study this or whatever. And then, like you said, they also have a notebook. Is that the? Oh, you can bookmark. Oh no, what did you say? Yeah, you can bookmark a certain page. I don't know how you know how you do that. So anyways, you have these reading tools as you go along, which is pretty slick, instead of just having like a PDF ebook, which is what most people provide, or a page book.
Then the student might just read the sticky notes though.
Well, they have to put the sticky
Well-
notes in to read them.
Oh, okay.
Because my old anatomy,
Yeah, so
when
that-
I was in school, I would always write on the margins. I was
Yeah.
highlighting and underlining, but so I would end up studying my margin
Yeah.
notes. And even if them creating those margin notes, so it's like a print, I don't know if they can print those out, but then at least it reminds them it's like a tagline.
Oh,
This would be specific to each student. This wouldn't
Okay, I
be.
thought it was the teacher was putting.
I guess it would be
sticky
neat
notes.
if we could do that as well, but or maybe we could give them access to our own ebook. I don't know.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's like $2,000 for the thing.
I know. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I know.
Nice seeing you again.
I broke my strap.